And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ladies Professional Racquetball Tour. My name is Tim Baghurst, joined this evening, of course, as always, by TJ Bomba, Commissioner of the LPRT. Tonight's special guest is Dan Whitley. He's the board president of the USAR and also very active in juniors in St. Louis. And we were talking about this before the stream started, TJ, Dan, and myself. But Dan, let me ask you to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us how you got involved in racquetball and what you're doing in St. Louis and USAR.
Oh, cool. I grew up in the sport. Both my parents played, and I was the kind of typical nursery kid who got out of the nursery at the racquetball clubs and started making my way to the courts and grew up playing. My high school dropped its team, and I did some other sports, but played tournaments concurrent to, running track and playing soccer and stuff in high school, and then played on a college team at Mizzou, wanted to stay involved, hopped on the Missouri Racquetball board. Next thing you know, I'm laid off from my job after I finished my MBA. And I ended up managing a racquetball complex and taking over a great high school program in St. Louis. And I've been in that position for 18 years. And now I'm operating some other sports too, tennis and pickleball, and running multiple facilities. And it's just a lot of fun. And getting to work with kids and racquetball is my favorite part of it.
It's interesting that you've been able to essentially have a career in racquetball, right? And a lot of professionals struggle to even do that. So can you explain a little bit about what your job is and what do you actually do?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because when I was working for Lucent Technologies in sales and marketing, and after I laid off, I had interviews with Monsanto and some other large companies going to do something similar. And then there was this opportunity where I could go back to college and get my doctorate, maybe teach at a university level. And it was like I was buying a house at the time, so it made sense to pursue this. And I think almost every single club manager in St. Louis called me and said, "What are you doing? You're not going to be able to do this." And Veta, as a company, Veta Sports, the company I work for, they're pretty diversified. They own several indoor soccer complexes, and then now it's 2 racquetball and tennis centers. And I started in racquetball, and they gave me an opportunity to make the most of that sport and try to grow things and do different things than just simply running programs. And we've grown our high school program, we've grown tournaments, we've grown leagues, we've just have a renewed interest in racquetball. And then next thing you know, they're like, "Well, hey, how does tennis look to you?" And I was given the opportunity to run a fitness center, a swimming pool, and a fitness center, swimming pool, tennis center, in addition to the racquetball club. And then they bought us another facility, and now we run a lot of municipal tennis centers in the summer too. So it's just engaging people in sports with rackets, and it's so much fun, and it's their lifetime activities. And the thing I like about it that resonated most with me was moms can play with sons, dads can play with daughters, the whole family can play, and like forever. It's the epitome of a life sport. So we really stick with that kind of branding and just recruiting the kids into the game. It's, hey, bring your parents to play too, because we can get them back in it. Because right now, the kids who are teenagers and approaching our program, there's a really high probability one or both of their parents have played racquetball at some point before. And parents love to get engaged in the activities their kids are, whether it's coaching or whatever, but playing it too, it's pretty neat. And it's something that's very unique to racquetball. That's a big part of how we brand and pitch this to people to give it a try, because parents kind of nudge their kids a little bit more when it's something that they can do too.
Well, we have a busy evening ahead, so let me just explain a little bit. If you're watching for the first time, we're talking with Dan Whitley. TJ is going to ask a few questions, I think, and then we'll go into your questions. So if you have one for him, whether it be junior programming, whether it be USAR, put it in your chat box. We'll get it to him. And then I know he's looking forward to a little Kahoot later on. And if you're interested in playing that, here's the information that you need. You need to go to kahoot.it. And the PIN code for this evening is 3597727. 3597727. I know, TJ, we got a giveaway this evening. So now's your chance to really get in there and challenge Dan, see if you got what it takes, deny him that little swag. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. TJ, I'm going to turn it over to you for just a few minutes, and then we'll come back to it.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Dan, thank you for joining us this evening. As I have kind of explained to you, we're not all business here. We just want to try to get everybody to know our guests a little better. So what I'm going to do is just ask some rapid fire questions, just kind of random, just about anything. Just answer the first thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
Okay. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An engineer.
Okay.
It didn't happen. An engineer, and then at some point an accountant, and that didn't happen too. But I at least was starting schooling for that, and then I switched over to marketing and management.
All right. So if you could pick any job, any career right now, no restrictions, what would you pick?
Oh, I'd want to be a baseball general manager, hands down.
Huh?
Oh,
Some Moneyball going on in there.
Oh yeah, I even lived in Oakland for a little bit during the Moneyball era, and I'm totally fascinated by baseball statistics and all that stuff. So that coincided, and I didn't even realize that was going on at the time. So it's kind of neat to look back on.
Nice. I love that movie, by the way.
Great.
Yeah.
Good book.
Okay, I'll get to that question in a minute. What is the best advice you ever received?
Oh, you build. I tell people this one all the time because one of the athletic directors I work alongside, he shared this advice with me very early on when I started running clubs, and it was you build programs for the masses, not built around the exceptions generated by a few. And if you do that, everything turns out most optimally. And those exceptions, you can still grant exceptions. You just don't build the program around the exceptions, and you can still please everyone. That's kind of my personality type, is to try to accommodate everyone the best we can, and that's a big part of it.
It's a challenge. No. If you won $1 million tomorrow, what is the first thing, just the first thing that you would do?
Honestly, I would put, making sure I took care of my kids first and foremost, and family. But after that, it's going to come to racquetball. The sport needs support from an angel of some sort, and if I could help in that way with some portion of that, that would be so huge, because the sport's given me so much. That would be the least I could do in that type of situation.
Okay. Speaking of racquetball, do you have a most embarrassing moment in racquetball?
At the US Open years ago, I was serving for a match. I had a fever of like 101, and I was hitting a drive serve, and I missed the ball and fell on my face. So I remember that. I ended up losing 11-10. I was playing Javier Moreno of all people. So I don't even know how I was that close to him on that given day.
He's a good player.
I don't know if he even would know who I was or remember that, but he would maybe remember the guy who fell on his face at match point.
11-10. Oh boy. All right. What is your greatest accomplishment so far in racquetball?
I don't know if this is considered. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what this is considered, but I've never won. I've taken some second places at a national level, but never a first. And then I coach a high school girls team, and they've won nationals a couple times. But when they won it the first time, I realized that infinitely surpassed anything that I could accomplish in terms of a first place, just because you could see the joy in their faces. And that was the first title that the team I coached won was in 2007. And to this day, I still connect with some of those players, and they still talk about that. And that's like the glue that bonds that group together. So I just think those experiences working with those kids can trump anything I would do as an individual. So.
All right. And last question in rapid fire, what is the last book you read?
Last book I read, it's called The Wax Pack. It's a baseball book. It's about a guy who opened a pack of baseball cards 30-something years later, and then he traveled around the country trying to meet all the players. So it's fascinating because it was from the time that I was a kid collecting baseball cards. So it's neat to see where all these guys have gone off to. So.
Good. All right. Thank you, Dan. I'm going to turn it back to you, Tim.
Yeah, TJ, we, of course, have Kahoot coming up, and we have questions for Dan, but we also have a special guest that you organized. So I thought maybe you could introduce this person before we brought them on air.
Yes. So I called this person because, Dan, you told me a story about this person that I was just so impressed with. And when we bring her on, I'm hoping that you will tell that story again related to you and one of your family members. But
Well, here she is, Rhonda
Oh
Racing.
my gosh.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to know this story now, so who's telling it?
Should I tell it?
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead. You know more than I do.
I know, but like, and I'm gonna have to call a person to this room here in just a second too, but I'll tell the story first. So back in 2018, Rhonda's in the Pan Am finals against Paola, and it's a Saturday morning in the Whitley house. My wife's coaching my son's track team. They're gone. I'm home with my daughter, who's, what is she, 5 at the time, and she is kind of bored, but I'm watching racquetball. We're streaming it to the TV. It's an amazing match. Rhonda just, like, I was on the edge of my seat and just enjoying it. But my daughter starts watching it. She's never watched me play or anything at the club. She's just getting a kick out of this, and she keeps calling, "Is Miss USA winning? Is Miss USA winning?" And she is just like ecstatic, and she's flying around the house doing all this stuff. And then when you won, she was just thrilled. And she kind of talked about it. And then when my wife came home, she mentioned it to her in passing and all this stuff. And what resonated most with me was the fact that this was on a television set. And when I think back to, like, you know, I'm 44. So when I was a kid, you weren't able to see, outside of some occasional tennis matches, because tennis was strong back then, you didn't always see women athletes on TV who could be role models for kids, particularly that age. And it really resonated with my daughter. And I was like, she's drawn to this. She doesn't pay attention to other sports and stuff. And she's pretty active. She was doing field hockey at the time and crazy stuff like that. So it's neat that she's already engaged in sports. So fast forward to national singles that year, I forget, somehow we're in the bar at the hotel, and there's, I think it was ladies night or something. And I had just missed my daughter's preschool graduation, which was going on back home. So I was sent pictures. I'm feeling like rubbish because I couldn't be there. I was like, wow, this is really cool. But I see Rhonda like 6 feet from me. So I go over and I tell her what I just told you guys. And I was like, I don't know. I feel weird being there, but I feel like because that's on my mind and I'm seeing her, I needed to share this with her. So the whole thing resonated with her from being a kid and not seeing women athletes on TV and having those powerful role models. And next thing you know, she's recording a message for me to send to my daughter. My wife then takes it to my daughter, which it's like, my daughter should have been asleep, but she's watching it. Miss USA from YouTube is talking to me, and she freaked out. And Rhonda wins singles. Rhonda helped get a bunch of autographs on a shirt for my daughter. Then Morgan's mailing Rhonda a picture, and they're exchanging stuff, and they still, whenever we see each other, Rhonda is always nice enough to send pictures to Morgan. When Morgan was struggling with school and being nervous about first days of school, Rhonda was sending her positive messages. It cracks me up. And I'm going to holler for her here in just 1 second.
So while he's gone, Rhonda, you have how many national titles right now? U.S. national titles.
Is that a
11,
Kahoot question?
Oh, I don't know.
11, I think.
It's an amazing record. I mean, plus, I mean, all of your experience on the LPRT, of course, and as #1 on the LPRT and still top competitor. So, oh, there she is.
So Morgan, Rhonda, Morgan.
Hi, Morgan.
She never doesn't speak. This is amazing. You have her speak. Do you feel shy all of a sudden?
Morgan, how old are you now? 7.
And this is how she does school every day now too.
I can't believe you're being shy right now.
I know. Can you at least say hi?
Hi.
This is the quietest she's been since I've been home from work. So this is awesome.
Well, it's good to see you, Morgan. I'm glad we got to say hi.
She is in awe. This is a rare Morgan. But hey, Rhonda, Morgan just signed up for basketball again. So she played great last season. I think last time we talked, we were talking about that. So she played great last year, and she's going to play again. So following your footsteps in that regard too.
Perfect. I'll send you some ball handling videos. You can do a little basketball homework. Basketball homework is the funnest kind.
I know. She was early on in the pandemic. She was outside shooting baskets non-stop. So
yeah,
that was a big thing for her.
I tried to do that, and they took the rims off of the backboards at all the parks.
Whoa.
They're still, yeah, the parks are still shut down here. I can't even go hoop.
It's all crazy. I get it, but it's crazy. We're lucky enough to have one in our backyard, so that's where she's doing stuff all the time. So
lucky.
I can't believe she's this quiet. She's the most talkative person. Okay.
Rhonda, we were talking about some of your accomplishments, 11 U.S. national titles, which is really amazing. You've also have gold medals in IRF and world championships, and again, #1 on the women's LPRT for numerous years. What advice would you have for a young lady like Dan's daughter, who might consider racquetball or another sport where they
honestly follow your dreams? I know it sounds cliche, but I mean, I would rather, speaking for myself, I would rather, take what I love as far as I possibly can than regret the fact that I never did it. And even if, however far that is, isn't very far, at least you can say that you went for it and then decided to move on to something else. But I mean, as far as if it's sports, if it's not fun, don't do it. I mean, I know a lot of people that have, at times been miserable, like, oh, I don't want to play racquetball again. And I can honestly say I feel very lucky and blessed that I've never had that actual sensation, because I don't have to play. I get to play. For me, this is I mean, I'm, as a professional racquetball player, I get paid to hit for a living. Like, what do I have to complain about? I get to go play a game as my career. Like, this is fun. This is, even if I didn't make a career out of it, it's still something it's a joy to do. It's fun to do. It's, even beyond, the health benefits or whatever, like it's a game. Like I want to play. It's like I said, it's like I've said this many times. It's like getting paid to have recess. I get to run around and go play, and I get to do what I love. And whether it's racquetball or basketball or, anything that I may pick up and do, like I do it because it's fun. If it's not fun, don't do it. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. As soon as it feels like a job, it's probably time for me to move on.
All right.
Go ahead, TJ. I thought you were going to say something.
No, go ahead. I know you want to open it up.
I was just going to say that one of the challenges that we have in any kind of small sport is having the role models who are willing to spend time and not only promote themselves and build up their image and their business as well, but also spend time with juniors and be visible and present and able to interact with those. And Rhonda is one of those people, wherever you are, whether it's at a world tournament or whether it's at a US Nationals or an LPRT stop, she's more than willing to spend time with people. And I think a lot of younger athletes who are coming up who want to be professionals can learn from that, in that not only do you have a responsibility to represent your sponsors and your country, but also the sport as a whole. And you can have a huge positive impact, but you can also have a huge negative impact if you don't have that in mind. Silence. I will say, Dan, the reason that you were so interested in that tournament, that match, was because of the commentary. It was fabulous.
But it goes back to like what Rhonda was saying. I mean, this is all about choices and choosing. Tim, you asked me early on about my career and stuff, and that's a choice too. I mean, you do things because you love and enjoy it. And my daughter didn't have to, she could have found any TV in the house. There's multiple ones. She could have sat in front of any of those. She was captivated by this. This was athletic. It was powerful, and it was intense. She's an intense kid. And so it was drawn to her. When her brother plays racquetball at the club, she isn't still doing it yet, but she'll come up there and grab a racket and go hit a ball around. And she's left-handed and can hit it low and hard. And if she chooses to play, she'll be great, but I'm not going to force it. She has to choose to and have it be something she enjoys. So that's the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key for any of the parents who have juniors, and Rhonda talked about it being fun, but also this idea of not pressuring somebody into enter a competition, go to training every week, because then they learn to dislike it. And then, well, why would I want to play that? It's not enjoyable. So, so yeah, great example of how Rhonda worked with or interacted with your daughter, so to speak, and kind of made a positive contribution. So thanks for that.
And she's done it time and time again. So thanks, Rhonda.
Hey, I appreciate all the top shelf artwork that I still have that she made for me. That I actually have that next to that national championship medal. With it, she sent me that right after that nationals. I have it right next to the medal.
The whole thing was a big deal to her, and she still talks about it, and it cracks me up. So
that's so great.
It's so cool.
That's so great. I'm glad I got to see her. She looks taller, even on camera. She looks
taller
already.
She's been growing like crazy here lately, and she's one of the taller kids in her class. But I don't know. We all know the sport's fun, so she's gonna find that out too. She'll be playing before long. I'm not worried.
Awesome.
Well, Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Appreciate your time and willingness to join us. And if you have questions for Dan, now's your chance to get them in the chat box, whether it be juniors in what he's doing to build that, and also as USAR board president, what does that mean? What does he actually do? Get them in your chat box, and we'll get them to him. Rhonda, I'm going to sign you off, and then TJ, maybe you could start with a question, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. All right, so Dan, you were talking a little bit before about the juniors programming, and you were talking about, at least before we went live, about how many kids you have involved in a program like that. So for somebody out there who is willing to volunteer, who wants to start something like that in their neighborhood, at their club, what advice do you have for them? How do they start?
It can be as simple as, you get an interested kid, you recruit their friends, and you start playing. You can use mechanisms like we do with our program that's a high school program, and now we're in middle schools too, where it almost becomes a club at the school, and kids are real diverse in their interests and almost take on too many, but that's neat because it's a sampling process. And racquetball by trial is really successful. So when a kid tries it and realize it's very empowering, they like the noise, they like that they can pick it up right away. It almost has, you can do like a PE class type introduction to it where you can get them going and playing within 5 minutes, and then they're captivated by it, and then they want to learn more and the technical details. So if you can start an intramural at a school or a club at a school, you only need a few kids, and then it's just bring a friend, and it goes from there. And clubs have off-peak court time that you can utilize, and that's one of the successes we have. We eat up all the off-peak court time at all the clubs around St. Louis, and it's just it catches on, and the kids, once you get a little bit of momentum, the kids do all the recruiting, and they do a great job at it because they're the best to testify to it.
So well, go ahead, Tim, or I have another question unless you're ready. So
No, keep going. You're fine.
Okay. Another question. So safe sport is a big issue now. I mean, for obvious reasons, it's spotlighted in the media, gymnastics to half a dozen other sports. But how has that affected racquetball, and how is USAR proceeding with safe sport?
The safe sport question. I love to talk safe sport. As a topic, safe sport's very intense, I guess maybe would be the right way to say it, in terms of the certification process and the methodology behind it. But the concept behind it is extremely relevant. And over this pandemic, I think HBO had a documentary years ago on the USA Gymnastics scandal. I finally watched that documentary, and I have a better understanding now of how horrible that was beyond what I read at the time and in the years that followed. And as a person who works with kids, what the heck, I'm going to do the safe sport and not complain that it might be a little longer than I want it to be, or a little more, time critical in terms of deadline, and I have to squeeze it in here or there. It hasn't been a challenging sell for me in St. Louis for coaches and such, because they understand it. If you're an educator and work with a school, you'll follow some similar guidelines. Other sports, I work with USTA, and they require it of all their coaches. And lot of Catholic schools in St. Louis who have a program protecting God's children, and it's almost on the same level now. And there was actually, shoot, I forget what sport it was, but they had this whole certification program for coaches recently, and Safe Sport was just one component of it. They went extra intense on things. And so I'm realizing it's a part of everything. And to do anything, I mentioned my wife coaching track before. She had to go through a certification process. As a parent, we step up and coach anything our kids need help with, and you're going to have to go through that. So if you're a regular coach in athletics in any way, that's pretty common. So it's a how can I phrase it? If you post signs up around the club during sanctioned events or anything along those lines with the process for Safe Sport, it's a really simple pathway if you ever have an issue that you need to bring to the attention of basically a third party separate from the USOPC or USA Racquetball, and it works. The system does what it needs to. So,
Okay. And
yeah, I would back that up. I've done Safe Sport, and it's not only protects you as the person doing it, in that one, you're more educated, but also you have some backing of, you have some training. But as parents, parents have the knowledge that these coaches have been trained in something, as opposed to 90% of coaches who have zero training whatsoever, and you don't know what they're doing with their kids. So I've heard some complaints. Oh, I have to go through this training. I don't want to do it. Really, Dan and I both done it. A lot of other people have done it. It's not very difficult. It doesn't really take that long.
I've kind of seen the bar raised as a result of that gymnastics scandal. I've seen the bar raised on all other, I'll call it coaching certifications and education systems that are, usually in line with a background check. And so I don't want to say they're emulating Safe Sport, but they're kind of challenged by it to raise the bar on that. Plus, I think it makes everybody feel that if you look at the pandemic right now and all the guidelines, it's the same type thing. It's about providing enough information so that you're safe having your child enroll in a program. And that's the mindset and concept. And if anyone isn't familiar, I don't even know if I should recommend it, but the HBO documentary on the USA Gymnastics scandal, it's horrible in the sense that it explains things, but it's so powerful that I'm forever changed by it in my approach to Safe Sport and some other things. So,
can you talk a little bit? We've got a question coming up here in a second, but can you talk a little bit about what your role is with USAR? Because for those who maybe aren't heavily involved in USAR, maybe go to a tournament here or there. We hear Dan Whitley, President USAR. All right. So what does that mean? Are you a boss? Do you make decisions? Are you just a committee member with a nice title? How does it work? Because a lot of people just have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even know how I've arrived at this point when I look back on it. I ran for the board of directors early in 2016, made it on to the board of directors, was really excited about the opportunity to help have a say in some decisions that influenced the things that I did, either professionally or just recreationally, and really liked having that honor and being voted on. And then thought, if I'm going to be in, let's go all in. And I wanted to be an officer of the board and started off as treasurer. And then within a couple months, because of an opening, I was elected president, and I didn't even know that was something on the horizon or something that I can honestly say that I was looking at that point in time. For a lot of reasons, one of which I didn't know what it meant. So the question's actually a really good one in the sense that I'm in the role now, and I can't actually say that any one year that I've served, the role has been the same function. I moderate the board meetings. I sit as the chair of the executive committee, which is the group of officers on the board. We oversee the staff. And I work closely with Mike Waddell, the executive director. One of the functions we did several years ago was go through an executive director search that was pretty exhaustive. We had 60 applicants and went through a ton of interviews and got a third-party person to come in and vet the candidates and such. And so it's very project-oriented. When we purchased WAR a few years ago, that was the big project. So in a lot of ways, I'm using this as an opportunity to get and understand parts of racquetball that I didn't understand and help where help is needed and help isn't coming, whether it's me recruiting other people to help in those efforts. So I don't want to say the stuff that no one else wants to do sort of falls to me, but that's one of the things that I've kind of tried to look at. I mean, when I hopped on the board, I didn't know that I'd go through an executive director search. I didn't know anything really about outdoor racquetball other than it was something I played on the weekends here in Missouri, which it's not as dominant as other states. And those are areas that aren't junior racquetball, which was the main reason I hopped on the board, was to help promote and grow juniors and create and be an advocate to develop those programs. But there's those topics and so many more that have popped up in terms of I was active in the finance committee for a large chunk of time, and now we have more experts in that area. So I'm kind of pulling into some other areas. And right now my big issue is the next racquetball generation and developing players of tomorrow at all levels of the pyramid, the top players, but also the foundation and growing the game. So the president thing, it's I don't know how it works in terms of what its intention was, but in terms of the function that I have, I vote like a board member. I try not to insert opinion as the lead voice or guide discussion, but I don't hesitate to share it, because as a board member, that was something I wanted to be able to do. So I don't want to deny myself that, or the people who voted for me to go into this spot. But I really enjoy it. I'm working with some great people. One of the things I really enjoy is getting along with everybody. I don't have an enemy or somebody I don't get along with. I have people there I have different opinions with, and I learn from them, and I enjoy those discussions. And we don't all have to agree. There's a thing called a consensus, and it's just neat working with people. And if we all agreed, it would be boring, and there really wouldn't need to be a board. So I've enjoyed this opportunity immensely. And despite the fact of being during a really, really weird time for racquetball and really challenging, but that's what makes us all stronger. And I'm doing the best I can, but I'm gaining a lot of experience from it that helps with the next decision and the next decision and so on, and some great working relationships for our association.
We've got a question coming up next, but I want to just remind you, Kahoot's coming up in just a minute. We had a code change, so I apologize for that. It's 709-9922. Don't forget, there's some swag. TJ's got some swag for the winner. I know some of you have been very close over the last couple of weeks of claiming the top title. Now's your chance, because you get a little swag accompanying that. So don't forget Kahoot.it. Don't have many people watching right now, so now's your chance. Your odds are pretty good, unless you can take out Dan. And of course, TJ is always in the top three. So Dan, you're going to have your work cut out this evening. Let's wear you out mentally by asking you a question first. Dick Gedney says, when we talk about juniors, and this came from when you were talking about your juniors and the work that you've done to develop them, are you actually targeting, juniors who are athletes, or are you looking for people who maybe, kids who don't have a sport, or is it just hey, we'll take anybody, we don't care?
Definitely, we wouldn't turn anyone away. One of the things we've worked to change over the last 20 years is making it a no-cut sport. Some of my favorite, I'll call them athletes that I've worked with, were the ones who started as non-athletes. Because I work with high school kids predominantly. It's a tough spot in life when you're going into high school. The sport maybe you've played your whole life. Now you get cut from that team, and you're told you're not good enough to play it. And so you're seeking a transformation, a new identity through sport and some are seeking a social experience. So a lot of kids, we've heard from their parents, wow, it was great they found a landing spot in racquetball. They hadn't really found that someplace else, a place that they could feel comfortable. And we really kind of run our league on parity and finding similarly skilled people for everybody to play. So you just don't want to have those blowouts. You want to have those positive experiences. So we look for the athletes too, because those are great. It's cross-training for your other sports if this isn't going to be your dominant one, or maybe this is something you want to excel at. We don't focus exclusively on that top of the pyramid, but if you grow a nice foundation, you're going to have kids who want to reach for the top, and maybe we'll develop more of those 365-day players. And I can say that with these kids learning things as freshmen or sophomores in high school, learning the sport for the first time, and then being an AR Open player by the time they're done with high school, that's pretty tremendous in terms of sometimes they're an athlete, and other times it's a sport that's a first for them to be successful at. So it's pretty cool.
All right, we're going to move on to Kahoot. So if you haven't yet, be sure to get into kahoot.it with the pin code there. TJ, what's the swag people need to know?
All right, so Formula Flow, Mauricio Zalata, owner of Formula Flow, also Formula Flow is a merchandiser for the LPRT, has offered to throw out a t-shirt to whoever wins outside of the LPRT here, outside of the LPRT, whoever does the best in this game gets a free t-shirt.
Right. So winner, if it's not Dan or TJ, make sure that you get a hold of one of us and let us know, and TJ will make sure. We want to say thanks to Momo Zelata as well, and also just run a little ad just to say we appreciate their support of the LPRT. All right, so just you got about 30 seconds to get in. Kahoot.it, game pin 7099922. We've had some interesting categories over this summer, and Jay, our quiz master, always gets creative, and so expect to see one or two racquetball related questions probably. Also, don't forget that when you're answering the questions, the faster you answer the question, the more points you can earn for it. So don't delay, don't wait, make sure you get in and get going. Okay, Jay, I think we're about ready. Awkward silence. Oh, I'm supposed to add it. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Question 1, true or false? Double points. Dan Whitley's favorite player is Wanda Ray.
Oh boy.
So is the picture here, Jay, is this supposed to mean that Dan Whitley's favorite player is himself?
I don't even know what to say. That started creeping me out when I saw the pieces disappear.
Oh dear.
All right, 3 seconds. Somebody put false. 5 said true. Next question. Are there places on Earth that are so dangerous or secret that they are forbidden from tourists? It's just a myth. I'm not sure. Yes, for sure.
I should have read them all.
How else would we play a Kahoot about it? So that's an interesting one. Because both of them are yes. Jay's just messing with us behind the scenes. I can see him. I can see you, Jay. Yes, for sure. All right, next question. A basket case is in the lead. Kamish, I think that's TJ. Snake Island has around 4,000 deadly snakes. Where is it located? Australia, India, Madagascar, Brazil.
Oh, I want to change my answer. Darn.
Can you change answers?
No.
I was gonna say, I just noticed that.
But I will say I don't want to go there.
Agreed. 4 seconds to get your answers in. And the answer is Brazil.
Wow, my first and second choice was wrong.
Yeah, I thought Madagascar, so no changes there. Why did the Indian government declare the North Sentinel Island as prohibited? No way to survive, wildlife dangerous, plant species, locals are aggressive. Difficult question. You just kind of think that maybe it's the locals are aggressive because it's so random, but then you're like, no, that can't be it.
It's an interesting declaration.
It is. Oh, no. 2 people got it right.
Wow.
Oh. Brandon takes the lead.
I don't think I'm winning a t-shirt this time.
What is not true about Chernobyl? What is not true about Chernobyl? I just watched an HBO series on Chernobyl, by the way. Fantastic.
Does that mean you're going to get this one right?
I hope I get it right. Probably wrong, but it's in Russia.
It's not in Russia.
True or false? Tomb of something may remain undiscovered indefinitely.
Qin Shi Huang.
Qin Shi Huang, yeah.
Undiscovered. Well, if it was undiscovered, how would we know about it?
That's the question, right?
Well, we know it exists. We just
heard of
know
it.
where it
You
is.
missed.
3 seconds. And true is the correct answer. Ooh, basket case back up in the lead. The Coca-Cola vault is also a forbidden place. Who knows the original formula? Nobody knows it, only a pharmacist, very few people. It's available to anybody. It's a good question. If nobody knew it anymore, how would they make it?
Don't they have to put the ingredients on the can?
Not the proportions though, so that would all be. But the original could be different
It's
than the
like
present.
supplements. You can put proprietary blend, and it's got all kinds of stuff. Brandon is very close in second place. Question 8, what is not true about the Bohemian Grove, California? Women are not allowed. Most powerful men in the world meet there. Club meeting there is 100 years old. Atomic bomb project was discussed there. These are difficult.
This is a tough round, Jay. We go back to the superheroes.
The club meeting there is 100 years old is not true. Wow. LGB19 in third. Rumors say that there's a hidden subway system in Moscow built for Joseph Stalin. It's very quiet this evening. Dan, you're not our talkative racquetball pro.
Yeah.
I'm pondering them intensely.
I think Jay said, Dan's coming. We need to make this challenging. I think this is probably the hardest one we've had.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen every episode you guys have had, but I don't recall anything like this.
Lack of practice, Dan. Lack of practice. If you played them every week. So what is believed to be hidden in Area 51, Nevada Desert, USA? Destructive weapons, proof of extraterrestrial life is the correct answer. Number 11, which of the following places is not forbidden for visitors?
Mhm.
Oh, I got this wrong. I put which is forbidden. Club 33 at Disneyland Paris, Pine Gap, Australia, Google Data Center, Fort Knox, Kentucky. 5 seconds to get your answers in.
Also a lucky
Answer
guess
is
there.
Club 33. I have no idea what that is. Apparently not many people do, so it must be a secret. Okay, multi-select. Select more than one. How many national singles titles does Ronda Rousey hold? Over 9,000.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't press submit.
Yeah, I didn't either. That was weird.
Oh, wow.
So you can select more than one answer on this?
Apparently.
Well, geez, I guess, oh.
11 is the correct. Everybody was, nobody put forth 9,000. That's a good thing. She'd be pretty old. Okay, third place, LGB19. Second place, Brandon Sly, well done. First place is Basket Case. So, Brandon, send us your information. We'll get you a t-shirt out to you. So congratulations to you. And let me just.
Tim, does that mean you were Basket Case?
Yeah, who's Basket Case? Oh, congrats.
Oh, thanks.
That was impossible.
Yeah,
you won last week too.
Cheryl Kirk, I want to know where you finished. Last week it was 5th, so I want to know where you finished. Played just to beat you, Cheryl. But anyway, let's get back to it. A couple more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. If you have questions, get them to Dan real quickly. But I want to ask a little bit about looking at juniors in the U.S. and I've been involved in or was involved in the IRF for many years, and also being on the LPRT tour. We see a lot of international athletes as professionals. What we don't see are many female U.S. players on tour. We see a few, but we just don't see that kind of who's coming up next. Whereas when we look at a place like Mexico, we can see some of those juniors kind of pushing. Even when there's a tournament in Mexico, we go, oh, TJ, we need to watch out for her. She's got potential. And that's not to disrespect anybody who's coming up in the juniors. But there just isn't the numbers that we see from other countries. So Dan, how do you get those 500 kids that you're working with to I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to go to college and I'm going to compete in college and I'm going to try and represent the US and I'm going to try and, get on tour for a few years. How do we do that? Because as the LPRT, we want to see those on tour as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I shared earlier, I coach an all-girls team, and we have 40 to 50 girls play on it each year at the school I coach for. And I mentioned the sports implications earlier, where you get to high school and you can't play the sport you've always played, or you're playing at a more of a rec level versus that highest level. And where racquetball fits in as a club sport in St. Louis, it's as a winter sport. So its main competitor essentially is basketball, which only can have so many people on the team. Swim is now a sport in that same time period too. But for girls, there's not a lot of sport options in the winter, and it's great cross-training for anything you're doing in the fall or spring. So if you've never played it, you might be tempted to give it a try through our mechanism in that way, and then you get hooked on it. And it becomes something you want to do more and more of. We've also seen, oddly enough, a lot of tennis players take to it as something to supplement their tennis, because they're looking at it rec, and then they'll switch over to racquetball. So it's about introducing it to the masses. So hopefully we can create what I'm working on for USA Racquetball now with a group of college kids here in St. Louis, is a racquetball program in a box that has, and we were spending a lot of time in May and June on it before we realized we had to kind of shift to create guidelines to get racquetball back, coming out of the pandemic, particularly here in St. Louis. But it's how to start a college team and how to start a high school team. And the more that can be replicated to introduce the sport to people, the larger audience you have to pull from to grow that next generation of players. And then I keep going back to this pyramid. I'm a big believer in it. You're going to have more people who aren't those top players, but by introducing it to the masses, you get those kids who just get hooked on it and they want it to be a part of them. And so many kids who didn't even know their freshman or sophomore year in high school about racquetball, learned it, enjoyed it, were the ones to go off to play in college, to start teams at different colleges. And it's simple to do. Those courts already exist on campus, and the colleges will support development of another club team or club program because they're very diverse. They want to have more student organizations. And then it's an officer opportunity for these kids to have, leadership positions in college for something that they enjoy. And it can make a big difference in racquetball if we can get more college teams and we can start high school and youth programs. And then junior programs, that's a big part of this too. And then I also think the next part, I kind of think it's what you're saying in the U.S. team players of tomorrow, is once you go through the college program, what gets you playing national singles? What gets you playing national doubles every year? So just as important and critical as junior development and developing this wider number of players is to create that bridge from collegiates, well, probably a more literal bridge from high schools to collegiates, but then some sort of a bridge from collegiates to adult play, just so it's part of their rhythm. I mean, if you think about it, when a kid finishes college, they start a job someplace and they're given vacation time, but they maybe don't necessarily know who they're going to take a trip with or what they're going to do. And they're looking to use vacation days, and going to national events is a possibility, particularly if you're reconnecting with the fun people that you had those experiences with in college. So I think it's maybe wider than just saying juniors, but the women's game and the women's players of tomorrow is something with having my daughter. My son plays too, but my daughter and that Rhonda thing, and it just irritates me that racquetball streams and people don't even know that it's on. We do fundraising to send our team places and no one even knows to watch it. And that's 2 years ago, I was really swept up, and people need to know that it's there so they have it on. I grew up in a tennis family where, Wimbledon and the US Open were on Saturdays when those tournaments were going on, just as something on in the background. Why can't everybody have racquetball on in the background? We just need to create those pathways. That'll also help expose kids too, because the children of current players who are watching are going to see that and get hooked too. Just like baseball in St. Louis and those players being role models for, kids. I could go on and on and on. I don't want to keep rambling, but it resonates with me.
TJ, final question?
Yeah, Dan, just because Vegas and outdoor three-wall ball is coming up, and the LPRT is a big part of that. We're streaming the Vegas event again this year for USA Racquetball. So that was a recent acquisition, relatively recent, where USA Racquetball purchased the World Outdoor Racquetball. So where do you think outdoor racquetball fits into the indoor equation or racquetball amateur equation?
Like near the top. And I don't say that lightly. Part of that was I was very much interested in outdoor because it brings a different group of players. There's nothing wrong with indoor. There's nothing wrong with outdoor. They're just different. The outdoor community in St. Louis is slightly different than the indoor one, but there's a lot of similarities, but there's also some succinct differences just in the way of play and the short wall, the long wall, the one wall. So the outdoor, it's important because war is such a great culture, and it's very, I don't know. You guys are going to the three-wall ball world championships in Vegas in October, and I went there in 2018. USA Racquetball hadn't had anybody go represent them, and I went there and saw it. And Mike Coulter and I had talked for months prior to that. He was you won't believe it until you see it, because I'd seen pictures in the magazine and stuff like that. But it is literally a village of courts and a melting pot of different people from different communities all coming together with the same thing. And it's outside, so the spectating is more fascinating because you're like on the court because there's no back wall and everybody's I say close, but we have social distancing, so I don't want to make it sound like it's people on top of people watching. but it's just great. And what he's built there is just so magnificent that just, drone footage and stuff doesn't do it justice. You have to go and see it. The Strat's an amazing hotel. You can there's restaurants, bars, everything you want at the hotel. It's great for families. You can walk over. Fremont Street's just down the road. Everything's kind of opening up except for shows, but it doesn't matter because it's racquetball, and racquetball right there, right now. And so, TJ, to better answer your question versus do a complete plug for the event is to really go back. My kids, I run facilities, and my kids learned to play racquetball on outdoor courts because they were in the park near the slides and the other things that they would run off of and then just hit a ball into a wall. And I think it's a quick exposure. When I think of any game I played in sports, they really started out in fields. And so when I go to parks and stuff and outdoor courts are present, it's so much easier access. And I work with a lot of municipalities, and they're always looking for programming to go in their parks guides. And any volunteer or anyone who's interested should speak up and reach out to their parks department and offer to go in that guide and have a program, and just whether it's programming, just having a simple league, or whether it's instruction on how to play. And if you've played indoor, you haven't played outdoor. They're completely different games from a strategic standpoint. And so it's really neat to go out there and see no ceiling in the sun and play the game you've loved outside now. So I would encourage anybody who's ever played indoor to give outdoor a shot. It's so much fun. I would start with doubles though, because if you start with singles, you're going to exhaust yourself too quickly. But that's what's neat about watching some of these top players compete in the outdoor level in singles is that is just incredible what they can do and what they bring to the table. So I highly recommend if you're looking for a racquetball trip this year to go to Vegas, and if you've never played outdoor in any way, shape, or form, to give it a try if there's courts in a park in your area. It's and just like all of our racquetball community, if somebody wants to learn the game, there's so many people who are willing to show you how to play it. And that's the one thing. We're a very inclusive group of folks, and just teaching new people the game is always exciting. So, and outdoor is so much easier in terms of access. And I have courts a mile from my house, so I'm spoiled by it. But I know people who will come up and play on those courts who sometimes drive 45 minutes or so just to play outside. So it's pretty special to play the game you love outside and in the sun and enjoy the weather and fresh air.
Agreed.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to being there. And if you're interested in participating, make sure you look online and sign up and join us there and meet us for the first time if you haven't yet. And, this is an opportunity to maybe do something new. And, we talked about embarrassing moments in racquetball, Dan, at the beginning. And TJ, I won't ask you yours, but I think mine is coming up at outdoors because I've never played. And so I'm slightly terrified, but it will be fun. I'm really looking forward to it and hope everybody tunes in if you can't make it in person and watch, just like Dan said, put it up in the background, let it play, and enjoy the action. Dan, we want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening, sharing a little bit of your time and some of your wisdom and experiences. Of course, TJ for joining us, and be sure everybody to join us again Thursdays 9 p.m. and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.